So agent burnout isn't caused by the agent. And believe it or not, it's not even caused by the customer. It's caused by bad operations and bad leadership.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. My next guest is Michele Crocker. Michele is a digital customer experience and contact center consultant who has worked with some of the biggest brands out there. She has experience running contact centers for cruise companies, hospitality, DHL, UPS. She started her career at British Airways in the seat as a contact center agent. She and I are talking today about what to do in a flat or down economy. How can you think differently about transforming your contact center without simply cutting costs without any thought? We have today an approach for you. Michele advises to think differently about talent development, about your approach to technology, where to invest and where to cut, and so much more. Please enjoy this episode with Michele Crocker. Michele, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. It's so nice to see you today, and I'm just so excited to dive in with you.
I'm looking forward to it too, Blake.
Yeah, because we have become friendly. I've learned about your family and your history in the contact center world. So I can't wait to share you with my audience. I'm so excited. You have so many nuggets that I found so unique when we were just chatting before. Tell our audience about your background and how you got into the contact center space.
Right. Well, as you can probably guess, I wasn't born in Los Angeles or San Diego here in California. I'm originally from London, and I first got into the contact center space when I was a student looking for a job to pay my way through college. And I thought, if I'm going to take a job, why not get a job in the travel industry? So I started off at British Airways as a reservation agent, taking about 100 calls a day. We had a lot of a manual reservation system in those days. So life was very different. And then I just found myself working my way through the traditional route of supervisor, director, and just working my way throughout pretty much every position in the call contact center industry. And it's one of those industries I think they wrote a famous song about. You know, you can check out, but you can never leave. So
Oh,
even
yeah.
giving birth to two daughters, I'm like coming straight back into it. And for me, it's the mission critical touch point that every company has with its customers.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking before that it's an interesting time. It's a time where many companies are feeling the weight, the stress of an uncertain economy, a flat economy. What do you see happening with clients in the industry in general in the contact center right now?
Right. I actually see a lot of clients put their tin hat on and get into the trenches and sort of make no decision. They're almost sort of operating in this recession mode. They're very risk averse right now. And what I believe they're doing with this mindset is really, it's sort of myopic and it's really impacting the future success and growth of a company. So, really, there's a lack of resistance to make any change, which is a shame because we're at the best tipping point to transform contact centers. The market's there, the technology is disrupting. Whilst companies are deciding to tighten their belts, they're actually tightening them at the wrong time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have chatted a little bit about how companies can kind of rethink the resources they do have. And you've
Exactly.
shared how your advice for contact centers going through digital transformation on how where they can find budget, where they can make cuts. Do you have any quick tips for our listeners on where they should be making cuts and where they should be investing?
That's a great question. Absolutely. So, having worked in a number of big corporations like British Airways and DHL and UP, I mean, it isn't my first rodeo here, and you know, we always go through these cycles of where there are cuts. My recommendations to your audience is you can find the money. There's two pieces of advice here. One is most of the investments in AI and automation actually are self-funding. So even if you didn't find the money, you can still move forward. And I can talk about that later on how you can do that with zero investment up front. But secondly, there's a lot of waste in companies. And generally what happens is there's a sort of an edict that says, hey, from the CFO's office, let's just everybody cut 10%. HR cut 10%, sales cut 10%, customer experience cut 10. And so it's this sort of cheese cutter approach to cutting. Instead of thinking it strategically and looking at where are those, and this is a message to every CEO who is listening, is where in my organization is not necessarily front facing to the customer or impacting the customer experience directly. And therefore I can optimize. And I can optimize through either looking at my processes and using a very basic stop, start, continue processes. We can optimize through doing talent assessment. Typically, leadership gives us lift and drag, and there's a lot of fat in some leadership where C players are just, left or zigzagged across the company. So to look at talent strategically, to look at processes on the back end strategically, to generate cost savings for those really mission critical touch points with the customer. So that's the contact center, that's the marketing team. So that would be my recommendation.
So let's talk about talent for a little bit, Michele. We have talked about what happens when you have B and C players and when you have them in middle management, how that brings down the culture of the team.
Yes.
What is the difference between an A player, especially in the contact center, and a B or C player?
Absolutely, great question. So I look at leadership in three buckets. Bucket one is strategic thinking, strategic leadership. That's we're here today. Can we figure out the next hill to climb? That's a strategic thinker. Bucket two would be operational. The operational thinker is once we find that hill, can we climb it efficiently and effectively and safely with the right ropes, with the right tools and resources? And then the third level of leadership, which I call is the most important part of leadership, is the people side of leadership. Once you've identified your hill, once you've figured out how efficiently and safely to get up that hill, do people follow you up the hill? Leaders can beat people up to a certain point, right? But do they follow you up the hill? And when you get to the top, do they stay? Or when you turn around, are you seeing their backs? So the difference between A, Bs, and C players and the A players give us the lift, is that they operate exceptionally well in all three of those areas. So they operate as strategic thinkers, they operate as executioners, operational thinkers, and they actually understand people leadership, how to attract high A players, but more importantly, how to create a high performing team that's engaged. And, they understand the difference between being a boss and a leader. So being a boss is about, the new generation coming in isn't thinking about a paycheck. They're thinking about a purpose. They're not thinking about satisfaction. They're thinking about development. They're not thinking about annual reviews. They're thinking about ongoing conversations. They're not thinking about my weaknesses. They're thinking about how to play to my strengths. And lastly, especially this new generation, they're not thinking about my job. They're thinking about my life and how my job fits in. So the difference between A players and C players is A players, people want to work on their team. They attract good people. They keep good people. And they know how to create a customer-centric culture. C players, they're not good at change. They tend to have Bs and Cs. In fact, C players actually are known to attract D players. A players hire A players. So that's the difference. In those really important parts of leadership, the A player is excelling. And I would rather, when I was leading large contact centers, Blake, I would rather have one A player than 5 C players, because the lift on one A player is substantially better.
Yeah, I would say people are probably shaking their heads going, oh yeah. And they're probably thinking about the B and C players they know that work in the organization and the problems that they bring. Let's switch gears and shift from the talent management to the technology side.
Yes.
So we've established that one of the big problems is is basically staff leadership not strong, the middle layer not strong. Let's talk about the challenges with technology. If you could consult with a contact center right now that really were nervous to make any risky investments, like what advice would you have for them on their tech stack in the contact center?
Right. Well, first of all, it's important to have a strategy. It's not, there's so much talk about AI today and shiny objects. Um, I think one of your last speakers talked about the question, what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is that
Right.
solution? So, technology has to be aligned with people and processes. Step one. It can never be just a standalone. So that's job number one, is to make sure that you really understand where you are today, where you want to be, and how you're going to get there. And then how do you align people and processes with that new technology? Number one. Number two, important to start small. Dip your toe in the water. Low risk would be something that's internal, so it's not customer facing. So something low risk could be an internal knowledge management system. Maybe that's what we try out, or some real-time assist with a small group of agents. And then we can expand. I had one client who started small with some really fundamental use cases for real-time assist, and then we started to build. There's so much benefit now in speech analytics. There's so much benefits in interactive voice assistance. So I would look for the things that are small enough to change and big enough to matter. And I would start small, and then you can start really getting confident. My other advice is, the easy part is choosing technology. The hard part is in the change leadership, the change management. So
Right.
rule number one, I had a conversation yesterday with a client who said the CEO had asked the CTO for the AI strategy.
Mhm.
We should be having Gen I. Go figure it out. Instead of asking the right question, which is, what's our mission and what's our overall strategy? And this is how Gen AI can play into it. So there's
Mhm.
this sort of race to get Gen AI in, but really we need to go back to basics, right? Do you have efficient processes? Do you have the right people? And then involve people. When I do assessments in contact centers, they're normally 3 weeks. I sit with agents and I do focus groups. And time after time, Blake, agents are saying, I wish we had the tools to service our customers well.
Yeah,
And our job
I
as leaders
totally
is to
agree.
give them that, remove the barriers. So listen to them, involve them, make them feel like their job isn't going away, but their job is going to be better, because the AI is going to take all that simple, mundane, somewhat repetitive, not fun job. And I can give you examples of where we've done that. And agents can then be really using their skills in customer relationship selling.
With the Gen AI stuff, I've heard some interesting research, like agents that train together with Gen AI, there's a better success rate when we think about change management. Or
Right.
AI sometimes will take agents' fake breakaway because the call summaries are now done by the AI and not the agent. So they
Yeah,
lose that little break they get after each interaction. So they're saying, I don't like the AI. But actually, what they're really saying is, I don't like that the AI now takes away my fake break I got when I'm doing my call notes. So I think these little
exactly.
things are interesting that managers aren't paying attention to the change management pieces of bringing AI into the contact center.
Exactly. And really stressing the benefits of the AI, because yes, it could take some agents would say that, and those are the agents that should be we should all keep an eye on as well when we're leading contact centers. But ultimately, if an AI can save you a minute doing an authentication for a client, for example, that's amazing. If AI can actually be on your shoulder. Let me give you an example. When I first worked at British Airways, we didn't have any of that. And so when I did tours, like somebody wanted to book a cruise to the Rhine, in Germany, we'd have a carousel. This is how old I am, folks, but we had a carousel in the middle of the table. And I would know from memory, yeah, that's cruise number 702. I would pull it out and I would pencil it in. And then when the client sent their money in, we'd write the in ink to
Right.
solidify that reservation. So
That's leaving
uh,
it to chance.
can you imagine if I had in those days a little friend coach on my shoulder, that as I'm typing in the cruise, it would automatically pop up. It would automatically take the payment without me asking for the credit card. And then
Right.
it would free me up to do what I call the real value added, which is the rapport building and the opportunities in those moments of truth to create delight for our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't, like, when I hear stories of the old days of CRM and writing things on paper and by
Yeah.
memory, We take for granted all these technologies we have today. But it's interesting. I mean, have you seen any of your clients able to draw the correlation with improved technology in the contact center and better return on investment?
Absolutely. One of my clients is still an online travel company and specializes in cruises and some pretty upscale cruises. And what we identified when we took a sample of 500 of their calls, we ran them through some speech analytics, and it sort of said, okay, the AI then said, these are the type of calls that we could automate. The what, where,
Mhm.
what's my itinerary? What time does the cruise ship leave? Where do I find the restaurants that are kid friendly? All of those who, what, where questions we started to automate, which was about 20% of their calls. That then freed up their agents to do something which was quite remarkable. We actually tested bon voyage and welcome calls. So if you and your husband and your two children are going on a cruise to Alaska, we would say to you, "Hey Blake, we're just ringing you to wish you bon voyage on your cruise. I know you're going to have some lifetime experiences. Just want to make sure that you've got your passports and take a jacket because it's 60 degrees at nighttime, even in July in Alaska." So we're having this conversation, and it's a minute call. But how
Mhm.
do you feel when you put the phone down? And then
Right.
afterwards, we'd call you back and we'd say, "Blake, within 72 hours of you coming back, how was the cruise? Was it a lot
Right.
of fun? What was the highlight? Is there anything we could do better? Because we pride ourselves in customer experience." And you might give us an opportunity to complain, which is great because they're a gift. A complaining customer that's silent is dangerous because they'll do
Yeah.
it on the digital soapbox. And then we give you an opportunity to say, "Hey, oh, by the way, I know you love cruising. This is your third cruise. Viking Cruises has this special right now for next year. They're holding prices. They're also going to be paying all gratuities and giving you a $500 on credit. Would you like me to hold that reservations? I don't want you to miss out." So, you might say yes. 1 out of 10 said yes. So when
Yeah.
you think about the impact that now has to increase revenue in the contact center, it's really powerful. So that's one use case, which increased their booking rates by 15%, which is tremendous.
Wow, that's interesting. So you're getting the pre-experience call of buckle up, we're heading out, here's some useful pointers. Then is it an automated call when they come back of like rate your cruise, or is it a person?
It's a person.
It's a person. And then they're offering, okay, if you rebook now for next year, we'll give you like 30% off.
Exactly. So remember, if a human call is $7 a call, if you put it through the IVA, it's 30 or 40 cents. So we freed up almost 22% of those calls, which created the resources to do those personal calls on the value added. So do you want your person taking those who, what, where questions, or do you want them building relationships and lifetime value of a customer and going on to various social media platforms and rating you 5 stars? So that's what this company decided to do.
A lot of my clients in the last few years have started taking an interest in cross selling. So they want their
Yes.
customer service people to upsell and cross sell, and some struggle. Some managers feel like their agents can't do it. But it's funny because they also have them using scripts and scorecards that prevent them from speaking freely and
Mhm.
improvising. Have you seen an interest in this cross sell, upsell, and how do you do it well?
I have, and I agree with you. Some of the scripts make people feel like sound like they're robotic humans. So some of the things we do is using again AI real time assist. When there's a certain use case that comes up, it will automatically suggest the right cross sell and upsell opportunity because it's connected with the CRM, it's connected to that customer, and so what it does do is suggest a certain number of scripts, and then the agent can then decide if they want to use that or do some variation. What I think is really important with speech analytics is this. Today, they measure the quality of the call with 3 buckets. Bucket one, and I use buckets a lot, right? But bucket one is, what are the words that the agent said? What is the tone that they said it? And what is the energy they say it? Because those things matter. I could say the script correctly, but I could be sending you to sleep, right? So actually having AI that measures not just the words, but the tone and the energy enables opportunities for coaching for better upselling. You can only upsell if you have energy. You're not going to upsell anybody without the energy.
Right. And that energy, it's like, how do you teach that? How do you build that into your culture? How do you hire for that? Do you have any
Right.
tips on hiring and developing high energy agents?
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to leadership again. It comes back to leaders know how to ask the right questions in the interview. So I think that's important. So it's really being intentional about your hiring, about asking the right questions, about maybe even doing some simulations. And then I think also it's about creating a culture of energy. I mean, it's infectious. You can't expect an agent to be high energy if leadership has a culture with low energy. And I know that sounds really basic, but there was something I read in Gallup not too long ago in a very interesting book called It's the Manager. And the leader today I still believe, is the most important person in the contact center. So if we have A players that we talked about before, A, B players in contact centers leading, then they will create a culture of energy, a culture of customer-centric mindset. And when they hire, the person who's being interviewed will be attracted. It's a law of attraction. They'll be attracted to that. So I think it starts with leadership and creating that culture of energy.
One theme that I've seen, Michelle, is so many leaders today are trying to do more with less, but employees are burned out and the culture is not there, the energy is not there. So, are there examples of contact centers that are bringing the energy, finding creative ways to do more with less, like management tactics, even in a down economy?
Absolutely. I think the first recommendation, I mentioned this earlier, is start with really understanding where you are today. A contact center has three core pillars to success: to being efficient and to being effective. And that number one is assess where you are today: people, process, technology. And then identify gaps where you are today, and then identify where you want to be and should be based on your business goals and best practices. So in terms of doing more with less, right? Once we identify those gaps, then we can look at some really good low hanging fruit. The reason why agents are burnt out is this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you have not strong leadership or bad organizational design, for example, one of my previous clients, some very large healthcare company, had a supervisor with a span of control of 100 agents, right?
Mhm.
So how do you coach 100 agents? So making sure that where you are today is set up for success. So taking a couple of weeks out to just go through, and this is how I help my clients. We take a couple of weeks to take a step back and look at the basics. Are your people process set up for success? And if they're not, you're paying the price of poor quality, and that is agent burnout, right? So if you have really efficient processes, strong leadership, then your agents are going to get burnt out because your workforce management is optimized. One of the reasons agents burn out is because there's poor workforce management processes. So that they're not planning well in when they need people at the right time. There's bad leadership culture, which means high absenteeism, high tardiness, low engagement. So you've got to fix the root cause of the problem. Then you can absolutely do with more with the same. In fact, I guarantee you can do more with less. So you've got to fix the root cause of these problems, these blockages that are burning agents out. My last client, a medical device company, had only 40 agents and they had an overtime rate of $180,000 a year. And then you have to go back and ask the sort of the 5 why questions, the fishbone, why,
Let me
why.
just stop you.
And
What's an overtime rate for our audience that might not know?
overtime rate is when you have to fill the call center with, you don't have enough people in the call center to answer the calls at the time of day they come in. So you have to offer existing employees overtime rate.
Okay.
So remember, the average turnover rate for call centers in the US, according to an Accenture report last year, was 52%. that is not a sustainable model because you're playing catch up. You never have full staffing levels and you're creating agent burnout. So agent burnout isn't caused by the agent. And believe it or not, it's not even caused by the customer. It's caused by bad operations and bad leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, isn't it funny when these numbers come up and they're probably so shocking to leadership, but I'm sure they had a feeling the whole time like something is wrong. And then it becomes $180,000 on a
In
bill.
overtime and
Yeah,
$15,000 according to Gartner Group every time an agent leaves to replace one.
right.
So this, if you have 100 people leaving, you can do the math on how much that costs. I've
Right.
had companies that I've helped where their cost to replace their leavers is over $1 million a year.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, there's obviously a lot of work to do, and I'm really glad that we connected. Clearly,
Too.
you're doing a lot of really interesting work, and hopefully, we'll collaborate more. Can we get to know you a little bit with some rapid fire questions before we let you go?
Put me on the spot. I'm ready.
Oh, okay. All right. Here we go. What is the most important part of your morning routine, Michele?
Doing my Pilates or bar class in the morning. I'm a member of Equinox Gym and I'm one of these 5 a.m. crazy people, but I get it done and it gives me the energy for the rest of the day.
Love it. So, what do you do to relax at the end of a hectic day?
Relaxing is hard, I'm going to say, if I don't bring in the wine piece. But what I generally do is now my husband and I are new empty nesters, and we've started to learn to cook. We're due to take some Sulatard cooking lessons. The Italian one, I think, is the first one. So I think just pivot into something that, as a busy mom, having a career, like, what can we do for dinner? And you're like, oh my God, here we go, lasagna again. We're now sort of branching out and being brave with our cooking. So that I find is kind of relaxing to get the ingredients and then start to cook it and have the time to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What show are you currently streaming?
Oh my gosh. The Gentleman. I
Okay.
love it on Netflix. I'm British, so of course it's in England and it's got British actors, but I love the thrill and the suspense of it. And I'm near the end. I'm hoping that Netflix will do a season 2.
What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Um, Perfect happiness. Again, we have 2 daughters, and you know, the years, the days seem long, but the years are short.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that to all the new parents out there with young children. So the idea of happiness is coming back together. Like we did this weekend, we took our boat. We have a boat. We love the water. We went to Catalina Island, which is not it's an hour from Long Beach, and we literally sat together and had conversations without any electronics. And the way you get to know your older children without the interference of electronics and just being away, it's just like when we go skiing together as a group, we don't have electronics. And the girls did say, well, don't you have Starlink on the boat? My husband said, oh, I don't think we got it working right now because we just
Mm-hmm.
know that the electronics changes the dynamics.
What is your favorite type of vacation?
Traveling to different cultures. So Japan was a highlight for us. We travel Anthony Bourdain style, so we go off the beaten track and we like to find non-tourist places. So different cultures, different topographies.
If you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Dead or alive?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my mom.
And
My mom.
lastly, if you had to describe your outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
The door to success is not push. Don't ever give up.
Love that. Well, this has been so fun. I hope you'll come back. If our audience want to get in touch with you or follow you, Michele, what's the best way to do that?
Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, and I'll reach out to you, and I'd love to help you and start a conversation.
All right. Well, everybody, you've been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. Thank you for watching. Until next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on social media, including Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and more.